Yeah, table to us means we'll put it on the table for discussion later.
Later.
Which essentially means we're not going to discuss it.
We're not going to discuss it, yeah. I mean, even okay, yeah? Even okay, the word okay, which has been... There was actually an article in the Telegraph, was it? About okay, the most commonly used word in the world. The most international word in the world is okay. But even the word okay has different meanings to different people. It's in almost every language. But, for example, when an English person says okay, yeah? Or, you know, for example, I said to my sister, oh, you've got some time off now before you go to university, maybe you're going to learn another language. And she goes, okay. Yeah, now, somebody that just took okay at face value, the way that it is, I believe, taken in American speech, that sounds like she was accepting my idea. Yeah? But the way we British use that word, it means get out of my face. Yeah? Yeah? Don't be so stupid. Yeah? So, one word can, or just even something which isn't even really a word, it's just an abbreviation of things that most people don't even know for sure where it came from. Nobody knows for sure where it came from. Can be greatly misunderstood between peoples. Where are we now? We're 20 minutes, so I'm going to have to really go at this quite fast. But Walt Disney, I'll cut down a couple and get to Walt Disney. They made all the mistakes they could, multiculturally. Quite apart from the fact that their films have gotten on a lot of people's nerves, yeah? I mean, they managed to upset all the Greeks with Hercules by rewriting Greek mythology. Walt Disney World, they came to France with their theme, okay? That hadn't been the first time that they'd done it outside America. Anybody know where they'd already been and made a success? Tokyo, very good. They went to Tokyo, put a theme park in Tokyo, and it was a great success. They didn't have any cultural problems, bridging across even to the Japanese. And when you think about it, if there's a culture more different than the Anglo-American culture, that has to be the Japanese culture. So rich, so subtle, so different, so in a sense almost alien in a nice way to us. If you can make it there in Tokyo, I mean it's almost like the old Frank Sinatra song about New York, isn't it? If you can do it in Tokyo, surely you can do it anywhere. Surely France is going to be a doddle. If the theme park idea translates into Tokyo perfectly, France won't be an issue. Yeah? Everyone in several states of America can trace their ancestry back somewhere down the line to France. Now, if you come from Louisiana or a couple other places in America, you know, it's true that you've been calling the French cheese-eating surrender monkeys recently, which is not very deserved, I think, but you know, there's been some antagonism. But basically, can there be such a big difference? I mean, if the Walt Disney theme park worked really nicely in Tokyo, places, surely there isn't going to be a problem translating it across to France. Well, the first mistake they made was with the food, okay? Because in America, you might know this, but one of the big revenue lines within a theme park isn't so much the gate fees or the ride fees or various other things. One of the big revenue lines is the food that gets sold within the park. Everybody comes with no food, and they buy the food that they're going to eat that day within the theme park. And they buy it at a high margin, and a lot of money is made that way at theme parks. So they thought, when they're budgeting, they're doing a whole business plan for this massive multi-million pound Euro Disney. Food and the revenue that they're going to get from food is a big item. It might be one of the key decision-making criteria as to whether to put it there or not. Yeah? What they didn't know is, they didn't even think to ask or question, was do Europeans buy food in theme parks? What they didn't realise is that Europeans go to theme parks with their own little picnic hamper. yeah, with pâté de foie gras. I am not going to eat your hamburgers. Yeah, so they came with their own food. Yeah, I mean, some Europeans, like the Dutch, they always, even if they go on holiday to a different country nearby, they take their own food with them from Holland. So you know, the good job they didn't put it down in Amsterdam or something, their theme park. So that completely was a misunderstanding. The next big thing, yeah, the next big mistake they made. What's another thing where Walt Disney theme park makes a lot of money in America, Florida?
Souvenirs.
Sorry?
Souvenirs.
Souvenirs. Yes, exactly. Souvenirs, gadgets, as they call them. They're selling little plastic models and things for their kids. And that didn't go down so well in Europe either. But what really went down like a lead balloon, as we say, was when there was a press conference about it, and executives from Euro Disney were asked to say why did Europeans behave differently in not buying the gadgets that were bought in America. And the guys stood there with a straight face and said, well, I guess we in America love our kids more than you do. Yeah. How you can manage to do a worse PR exercise to yourself than that? Yeah, it'd be hard. He did it. Yeah, and then he went on to say, people will come to Euro Disney, yeah, and have Paris as a side attraction. Yeah. Now you can imagine what the French thought about that. So I think, you know, whether just those two insensitivities made, how big they made an impact on their revenues is anybody's guess, because you can't have two separate realities going alongside, one where he says it and one where he doesn't say it, but it could have cost them a lot of money. Okay? And then another one that they didn't get on very well with was, and I've said that organisational culture is stronger than national culture, but they said to the French, you must smile. Yeah, the French, because in an American theme park, yeah, you got people that smile and they'll talk to strangers. That's a lovely thing about America. do apologise for my voice. If I don't lecture for a couple of months, my voice gets weaker. But in America, it's lovely. I love one thing about the United States. Well, I love a lot of things about the United States. Don't worry. But one particular thing which is nice about America is, you know, people come up to you that you don't know and they say, "How are you today? How are you doing?" Yeah, that's supposed to be American again. And you say, "Yeah, hi, I'm supercalifragilisticexpialidocious," and you, yeah, and everybody's happy, yeah. So in Europe we kind of don't do that, yeah. But American companies come in and say, you know, you got to smile, greet people, you got to greet people at the door, you got to go up to them, you got to talk to them. You know, you can imagine this American explaining to the French, you know, you're not coming up to people, you're not smiling at them. Smiling? Why would I smile at them? You know, smile at them and talk to them. Talk to them? But I don't know them. No, just go and talk to them. About what? Yeah? So, completely different approach. So, you know, within time, they get it. Yeah, they do get it. But you've got to give extra time. You've got to give extra time. Okay? If you go to Walt Disney, Euro Disney, they are going to smile at you. They are going to come up and talk to you, even though, you know, they might be embarrassed about it when they go home. You know, they might have to even go to home to their parents. So, well, how was work today, son? Oh, you know, Dad, it was terrible. I had to talk to strangers. Awful. But nevertheless, they do it. Yeah. You might have to pay people a bit more to make them do it, but you know they do it. Organisational culture ends up being more than national culture. So, why did people why did they go wrong? Why did they go wrong? These big companies. Why did Hillary Clinton? I hope there aren't any really strong supporters of Hillary Clinton, because I'm going to lay a bombshell on you. But after going on and on about George Bush's faux pas, yeah, the Obama administration comes in and Hillary Clinton goes off to meet Sergei Lavrov, her opposite number, in Moscow. And she takes with her, I don't know if any of you remember this story, okay, what looks like a button that's been taken off the side of one of those baggage carrier things in an airport. Yeah? It's like a yellow box with a red button on the top. And she says, this is the reset button because we're resetting our relationship. And I've written on the side, reset, in Russian, перегрузка. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Lavrov? And Lavrov's standing there very dour, yeah, going, actually, you needed a different word. You needed перезагрузка. This is without the za, just перегрузка. You should have перезагрузка, you had перегрузка. And Hillary Clinton's face falls here before the mass media of the world. This is all on, you know, John, what's his name? Stewart? Yeah? And she goes, oh, well, that doesn't mean reset? No, it means overload. So, you know, how do people do that? How do people make this kind of faux pas internationally? Yeah? How do they do it? Why do they do it? After all of the times that the Democrats had criticised George Bush's administration for international faux pas and getting things wrong about countries and what have you, you'd expect them to come in and try and do their best to avoid them, right? Themselves. Not do things like give Gordon Brown a pack of DVDs after he's just given you a specially handcrafted, carved set to put on your desk, which is made from the other sister slave ship that your desk's made out of in the Oval Office. And individuals have thought about it, planned it, created it, made it. It's unique, it's a treasure. There's nothing like it, another one in the world. And you couldn't put a price on it. Gordon Brown gives to Obama, and Obama gives back a set of 10 Hollywood DVDs that you can get from a gift shop, to sort of showing the special relationship and how one-sided that might be. And when Gordon Brown takes them home, he discovers it's code 1 and Europe's in code 2, so he can't even play them, you know. So how do they make, sorry, I don't want you to feel bad for your administration, like I say, I don't blame you for probably half of you voted the other way anyway if you even got to the polling stations accusing me. But if you live in Oklahoma, you probably didn't, but there you go. And if it was Florida, then you probably didn't have your vote counted even if you put it. But anyway, don't mind me, I'm just having fun. Basically, how do they do it? Why do they make such mistakes? Yeah? What do you think? How can you avoid it?
Be a little more thorough with the way you approach situations and think about it.
Be thorough?
Like Hillary Clinton's like, I don't understand, maybe she doesn't have to have one of her first or go.
Yeah.
Maybe research, take a few seconds, not to think, but figure out what reset in Russian would actually do.
Any dictionary would tell it to you,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's not like they can't afford to have a Russian speaker on the staff, yeah?
Yeah.
So how they actually managed to make a blooper like that and not check out themselves is quite surprising. Like you say, nobody actually needs for Hillary to speak Russian. You know, it's understandable that not everybody's going to speak Russian, so it's, you know, nobody wants Hillary to know it, but at least they could have had on the staff, they could have had natives in the team, yeah? So lack of natives in the team, that's one thing. Yeah. Lack of, I think, a certain lack of intelligence in the teams, and the lack of imagination. You definitely need intelligence. You need imagination. You need some kind of experience. Yeah. But what you really need, Gesundheit, What you really need is you need diversity. What you need is diversity, okay? Because a lot of decisions are made. I mean, in the Walt Disney kind of world and in the IKEA kind of world, decisions get made by men in suits, predominantly, unrepresentatively predominantly white, okay, male and of a certain age. Yeah? If, you know, and that wouldn't be necessarily bad if they were all like me, you know, because they probably a lot of them look like me, some of them are even fatter than me, but in fact a lot of them are doing, you know, well in a nice, well, they could probably be in good competition. But if they're all like me, and as much as they actually take an interest, it might be different. But some of them are really insular, and so what you need is diversity. Yes.
Yeah, I think diversity is really lacking in the United States as a culture, as a collective mental program. You know, in the United States, it doesn't matter where you come from, you're supposed to become American.
Mm-hmm.
And we're called a melting pot.
Yeah.
I lived in Canada for 11 years, and an extraordinary difference between the U.S. and Canada is Canada remains a mosaic. You're allowed to keep your culture, honor your culture,
Yeah.
live your culture.
Yeah.
You don't have to become Canadian.
Yeah.
But in the United States, part of the culture is to give up your culture and your heritage and become just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And we all think that everybody should do it our way.
Yeah.
We don't have passports. We don't go and become aware of differences. It's not surprising to me that we make these mistakes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you talk about the melting pot and everybody's supposed to come in and become American, there's good and bad in that. Okay. And at the moment, you can make mistakes in dealing with other cultures if you haven't got anybody left in your country that really remembers their culture of their forefathers. You know, for example, if you take the Hispanic people in America, okay. I don't know if any of you have Spanish ancestry, and if you do, whether you know Spanish or not. Yeah, but I read statistics about America that say that in fact Spanish is never likely to become the language of American takeover English, despite everybody's panic attack about it, because second generation Spanish people usually speak English, and by the third generation they've forgotten Spanish. And certainly if you talk about, you know, other Europeans, yeah, because when we're talking about the Spanish, you're often not talking about direct European immigration. You're sometimes talking about immigration from Latin America, people that went from Europe, from Spanish-speaking Europe to South America. They interbred with Native Americans in South America, and now they're indirectly European, and therefore Americans have this tendency which we don't really understand. And I had to ask about it because at first it completely bamboozled me. When they talk about whites and Hispanics as though Hispanics weren't white, whereas you'd never think of a Spanish person as not white in Europe, yeah? Whereas in America, you know, I think the whole thing is nonsense anyway. Like I say, for me, there's one human race, and that's your lot, yeah? But just looking at the strange way people talk about it, and talking about Hispanics as if they weren't white. I mean, to us Europeans, that's kind of crazy, yeah? Because if you go to Spain, they're the same as us, yeah? You wouldn't. I mean, I don't look different being British. If I go to Spain, I don't look different to somebody in Spain. But even if I was blonde-haired, what have you, there's plenty of Spanish people that look like that as well. So you know, the idea of Hispanics being different. I mean, it's only because it's not a very direct line of immigration, as it goes via the south and then back up again. But other European immigration, for example, the Germans. I saw some people with German-looking or Scandinavian-looking surnames amongst you. Do you speak German and Scandinavian, those of you that have those surnames? No. So it's very, very quickly lost, yeah? Yes, please.
My family's Greek, and my brother and I are the only two out of all of my cousins that are the same age as us
Yeah.
that don't speak. So when we're around the dinner table and they want to say something about
Δεν μιλάτε ελληνικά. Δεν μιλάτε. Δεν είναι καλά. Peri na. I've forgotten learn. Peri na milite Ελληνικά. You must learn Greek. You must speak Greek. Yeah? If you come from a background, yeah, you have to. You say, I'm not Greek, and I spoke to you in Greek. So you've got no excuse. Not sorry. I don't want to make an issue of you because I can do it to anybody here. Yeah. But if you come from a background, that's precious. Yeah. My forefathers were Welsh, so I didn't live in Wales, but I learned Welsh, and I suggest that everybody does that sort of thing because it's a connection to where you come from. You remember roots and Punta Quinte and everything. You don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. Yeah? So sorry to single you out there, but you don't deserve to have been singled out, but you kind of volunteered for it. But if you, it's up to individuals to keep their culture, okay? It's up to individuals to keep their culture. One guy that I work with, he's got one Chinese parent and one European parent, okay? And I try to speak to him in Chinese, the guy didn't understand me. I said, well, hang on a second, I haven't got any parents who are Chinese, I'm speaking to you in Chinese, you can't understand me. That's a real pity, isn't it? He admitted it was, but said, you know, when he was a kid, there was pressure on him in the society of the European country he lived to conform. Had he spoken his own language, his own mother's language, it would have made him different. He didn't want to be different. And that's what's happening in America as well. That people don't want to be different. People don't want to stand out. It's, Mom, don't shout at me in the street in Italian, yeah? And then that's the beginning of it, yeah? People don't take a pride. They feel they should be taking pride in being the same as everybody else, to be an American, as you say. And then you lose it. On the other hand, you've got a problem because we didn't have the melting pot in England, yeah? We encourage people, keep your culture. You can have a school here, Polish people coming here, there's a Polish school, go to Polish school. You want to come have an Islamic school, here you go. And we have huge, well, the Islamic people live together, the Chinese people tend to move around a bit, but they have a Chinatown where their sort of supply centres are. But the Muslims have kept together. In certain towns became quite sizable Muslim communities. And then that created a problem because that's not a very compatible philosophy with a modern UK philosophy. We have been very tolerant, I believe, to Muslims, but there's an element of Islam called Islamism, Wahhabism, which is anything but tolerant towards the way we want to live. So you know, tolerance is all very well as long as everybody's tolerant back. Yeah? But when you get one person that starts being intolerant, well, then the whole house of cards starts to come tumbling down, and that's why. And you talked about the melting pot. That you had a melting pot, you didn't have separate cultures. That's one of the weaknesses of America. But please note that in the last month, Angela Merkel, Nicolas Sarkozy, and David Cameron, within weeks of each other, have all said the same thing. Just in January and February now, that multiculturalism hasn't worked. We're going for the melting pot, the American melting pot approach. So
how will that impact business? Because the argument is to stop making these cultural faux pas in business.
yeah,
You need diversity and you need awareness of other cultures.
I think what's
And
happened.
if we all go towards the melting pot,
Yeah.
we're losing that. We're actively moving away.
I think what we're coming to actually, Christine, is what we're coming to gradually is that people are having more than one culture in themselves. Yeah? This has already been, this is nothing unfamiliar about that with regard to, you know, most people know, there's a lot of people who know this very well in their own experience today. Yeah? You've got, I mean, even in England, you could have come from a working class background. You know, England is a very class-based society. So you could come from a working class background, and you could go into a situation where you have to go to work. You have to sound classy. Yeah. So you go to elocution lessons, or you do a little bit of voice acting, and you go into work and you say, "Good morning. I'm very pleased to meet you. My name is David James, and I represent the company Baker Tilly. Pleased to meet you. Please take a seat. Coffee, tea." You know, and you can sound like, you know, speak beautifully, as we say, speaking beautifully, yeah? You know, you can go home and then, you know, you're chatting with your family and you just lounge on the settee and you start speaking in London like that, and you know, it's a completely different way of speaking, but it's low class. So people can adjust, in England, people adjust already their actions, the way they behave, yeah, to the situation that they're in. And it's going to become the educated people in business have more than one culture, and they swap between their cultures. They learn to become a little bit like chameleons. And that's what educated people tend to have to do at the moment, yeah? And gradually there is a certain default business culture, a default international business culture that's emerging, where people look and sound a certain way, and the American voice in that is actually stronger than anybody else's.
That's part, so we are reinforced for our ethnocentrism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you get reinforcement by the fact that people. I mean, you can say, why does this happen? Or is it just because America had more money than other people? Is it because America was the largest economy? Maybe, probably that's a large part of it. Yeah. Nowadays, America is looking at a situation where soon it won't be the largest economy.